If you are already practicing Gnostic learning, then you do not need an introduction to the idea that most human suffering is not only caused by events, it is caused by misperception, identification, and unconscious participation in forces that do not serve the soul. Parenting is one of the most direct laboratories for testing whether your Gnosis is embodied. Not whether you can explain Sophia, the demiurge, the archons, or the difference between the pleroma and the kanoma, but whether you can remember yourself when your child is screaming, lying, melting down, refusing, or collapsing into fear. Because in the household, the archonic system does not show up wearing mythic symbols. It shows up as urgency, it shows up as shame, it shows up as control, it shows up as the demand for a performance from your child and from you. So the question for a Gnostic parent is not, can I quote the texts? The question is, can I stay awake inside the moment? Gnosis as a parenting faculty, not a concept. In practice, Gnosis is an inner faculty of recognition, a capacity to see reality clearly, including your own inner movements without being captured by them. Parenting constantly pressures you to fall asleep. You get tired, you get overstimulated, you get touched out, you get judged, you get scared. And in that state, the mind starts generating interpretations that feel like truth, but are often only reactions. A Gnostic parent learns to treat these interpretations the way you would treat any archonic suggestion. Not with paranoia, but with discernment. Is this thought true? Is it useful? Is it leading me toward remembrance and right action, or toward compulsion, domination, and fragmentation? This is where Gnosis matters, not as belief, but as perception. The household as kanoma pressure. Many Gnostic schools speak in different language about the density of the lower world, the pull toward forgetfulness, the trance of roles, the intoxication of fear and status, the hypnosis of approval. In parenting, the kanoma pressure is intense because the child triggers your most ancient reflexes. The child's distress can trigger your need to fix. The child's defiance can trigger your need to control. The child's impulsivity can trigger your shame. The child's needs can trigger your resentment. None of this makes you bad. It makes you human. But if you are walking a Gnostic path, you do not treat these reactions as identity. You treat them as phenomena, movements in the psyche, energies that can be witnessed, named, and released. This is the difference between a parent who is spiritually informed and a parent who is spiritually awake. Archons as patterns that hijack parenting. When Gnostic texts talk about archons, you can understand them as structures of consciousness that keep the soul in confusion, fear, and compliance. In a modern home, you can map them as recurring patterns that take over when you are dysregulated. Here are common archonic patterns in parenting. Shame, the belief that your child's behavior is a public verdict on your worth. Control, the belief that force will create safety. Urgency, the belief that everything must be solved right now. Comparison, the belief that your family must look like someone else's. Catastrophe, the belief that this moment predicts the entire future. Image management, the belief that appearing good matters more than being true. If you want a single diagnostic question, it is this: when I am parenting, what force is actually driving me right now? Love and clarity, or fear and compulsion? This question alone is a practice of Gnosis. The pause as remembrance. The most practical skill in this episode is the pause, but for a Gnostic audience, I want to frame it accurately. The pause is not a technique to manipulate the child into calming down. The pause is remembrance. It is the moment you step out of identification and return to witness. It can be half a second, it can be one breath, it can be a brief softening of the jaw and shoulders, but it is the difference between parenting as reaction and parenting as conscious action. A simple remembrance practice you can use in real time. Feel your feet or your hands. Physical sensation anchors you. Exhale slowly. Long exhale signals safety to the nervous system. Name the force present, silently or quietly. Shame, urgency, control, fear. Choose one true sentence. My child is having a hard time. I can lead without domination. I can hold the line and stay connected. This is not abstract spirituality. This is Gnosis as embodied perception. Checking your story as discernment. A Gnostic parent learns to separate fact from interpretation because the psyche creates myths instantly under stress. Fact, my child is screaming. Interpretation, my child is disrespecting me. Fact, my child will not put on shoes. Interpretation, my child is trying to ruin the day. Fact, my teenager rolled their eyes. Interpretation, I am losing my child and I have failed. In those interpretations, you can feel the archonic flavor. They generate threat, they generate urgency, they generate the need to dominate the moment. Discernment asks you to do something very specific. Strip the narrative down to what is actually happening. Then ask, what is the most accurate, least inflated meaning? Often the most accurate meaning is, my child is dysregulated. My child lacks a skill. My child is testing autonomy. My child is anxious. My child is exhausted. When you choose the truer meaning, your response changes, your nervous system changes, your tone changes, your timing changes. This is why story checking is not a self-help trick. It is an anti-archonic act. Responding instead of reacting, authority without domination. In Gnostic terms, reacting is being driven by the lower mechanics of the psyche. Responding is acting from essence, from the part of you that can see, choose, and remain coherent. Your child does not need you to be permissive. They need you to be coherent. Coherence means your boundary is real and your connection is real. Reacting usually sacrifices one for the other. Either you become harsh and lose connection, or you become afraid and lose the boundary. Responding holds both. Here are examples that preserve coherence. I see you are furious. I will not let you hit. I am right here. You can be mad. You cannot throw things. If you throw again, I will move the items away. I hear that you hate this. The answer is still no. We can talk when your voice is calmer. I will listen. I am not negotiating while we are yelling. Let us breathe, then we will solve it. Notice what these statements do. They acknowledge reality. They set a limit. They communicate stability. They do not shame the child. They do not collapse into appeasement. That is authority without domination, which is the only authority that does not feed the archonic cycle. Parenting as alchemy of the parent. A Gnostic practitioner already knows that inner work is not performed in perfect conditions. Parenting is not a distraction from the path. It reveals the path. Because children activate your shadow quickly. They bring up your family scripts. They expose where you still confuse control with safety. They show you where you still need approval. They find the exact places where you are not free. This can be humbling, but it is also a gift because it gives you a chance to stop passing the spell forward. When you feel the surge, the heat, the need to crush the moment, that is the moment to practice. This is my activation. This is my history. This is my nervous system. This belongs to me, not to my child. That single sentence can prevent a generational transfer of pain. A weekly Gnostic parenting examine. For an audience practicing Gnosis, I recommend a weekly review that is closer to an examine than a journal dump. 10 minutes once a week. Choose one moment that you regret or that felt spiritually significant. Write 4 lines. The facts, only what happened. The archonic force, what took over in you. The false story, what you believed in the moment. The truer perception, what you can see now. Then add 1 repair action, even if it is small. A repair action could be apologizing, reconnecting, clarifying a rule, or changing an environmental trigger. This practice trains remembrance. It converts insight into formation. Why this matters? In Gnostic terms, many parents think the spiritual goal is to be calm, wise, and gentle all the time. That is not the goal. The goal is to wake up more often, to return to truth faster, to repair more cleanly, to use power for protection, not domination, to refuse the archonic invitation to shame, control, and performance. If you can do that, your home becomes a living teaching, not because you preach, but because your child experiences something rare. A parent who can hold limits without cruelty. A parent who can admit wrongdoing without collapsing. A parent who can stay present in chaos. A parent who is practicing Gnosis in real time. That is why Gnosis matters for parenting. It is not a concept you add to your worldview. It is a way of seeing that changes what your child grows up inside.